Twitter too. Connect with us there and get involved.
We started listening to your station and everybody likes it.
It's awesome. Yes, it's awesome.
We absolutely love it.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And now, here's your host.
Welcome back to the program. I'm Zev Brenner. To Israel we go. Mark Halawa is still officially a Palestinian refugee, the son of a PLO activist who was a contemporary of Yasir Arafat. Today, he's a practicing Orthodox Jew. He's Mordechai, living in Jerusalem, intending to improve relations between Muslims and Jews. Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Zev.
So I was fascinated by your story. So you were born in Kuwait. Your father was a contemporary of Yasir Arafat. His part of his salary went to the Palestine Liberation Organization. You grew up hating Jews. Tell us about your background. I know you weren't a religious family, but yet you were taught and hatred of Jews from an early age.
Thank you so much. And it's never easy to recount anything about my background. And half of the time, I don't even believe I grew up there. But my father went to work in Kuwait in the early 60s as an engineer, electromechanical engineer, working for the government of Kuwait. At the beginning of his career. Later on, a few years later, he was joined by this guy called Arafat, who, as my father would describe him, was a lousy engineer. Was not really his job, or what was in his mind was not to work. He had some political plans, and he came over to raise funds for from the Kuwaiti government. I don't want to get into that in history calling, but to answer your question, my father was involved early on the process when Arafat started this organization. He couldn't raise funds. He was told, go raise funds from fellow engineers. And as you mentioned, a portion of my father's salary and others, there was the first around 300 people that my father keeps repeating, first 300 people that funded the PLO in Kuwait after a flag of Palestine was chosen, and everything started to be, taking shape, raised funds from the government of Kuwait, and wanted to show that he's doing some political work, and that involved meetings and workshops and all of these things. So my father was involved in that. Some of this was before my time, before I was born, and some was after I was born. I was dragged into many of these events. Many of them, most probably, I would never remember the details of, but some stuff later on in life, which I find a little bit unique. At the country club where we belonged, we went to, my father, did well for himself, and we were a part of a couple of country clubs. Sometimes they would have a fundraiser for the PLO, and with that comes these acts and shows and Boy Scout activities and, marching and all. And, as you see on TV sometimes, like they have all these plays, pretending that the Jews are coming over to take our land from us, and we're doing this and we're going to fight. And you have these fake guns in your hands that you're going to defeat the Jews. We didn't say the Zionists back in the day. That's 1990 introduction. I was one of these boys in various ways. Sometimes I would be active, and sometimes just part of a group of kids. They tell us, walk this way, follow this guy, and just hold this cardboard-made machine gun. And so this was a part of my life. Now, after we're done, most of these people who cannot afford being in that country club end up leaving, and we continue with our activity in life. And that usually is at the beginning of the summer, or what you call spring, but there's no spring in Kuwait, either summer or winter. And then after that, we go on vacation to Spain, most probably, like most of the time. So that was our life. It was a contradiction.
That was 1990 when you went to vacation to Spain, or did you do it on a regular basis?
Every single summer. We have an uncle there, so it's a cheaper 4-month vacation for us.
Did you ever meet Yasir Arafat during growing up in Kuwait or any other time?
It's a great question. I'm not sure. I could have. I very well could have.
Now, part of your education, they taught you all kinds of anti-Semitic things in school, like, for example, the Jews wanted to destroy Islam, or you were asked in your math class, if one rocket can kill 7 Jews, how many would you need to kill 100 Jews? So that's the kind of indoctrination you had. So you grew up with this steady diet of Jew hatred.
So I spoke about this various times, like throughout the United States, around the world. Not just math class or Arabic class, even Arabic language class, and religious class, as you would probably guess. But everywhere you turn your face, you learned about this. They had this type of cartoons back in the day. I don't know what it was, just like this clay that moves around and all. And they used to teach us how Jews don't respect their Sabbath, and they go around what Allah's commandments are, not to fish on Shabbat, and they give you all these stories, and that's why Allah made them pigs and monkeys. So you're given these things, you're watching it, and every child in your generation is watching it. You have a common understanding that yes, Jews are right now pigs and monkeys. There's no more Jews. So they tell you the Jews that are there today are not the real Jews. The real Jews, Allah made them pigs and monkeys. End of story.
Also, didn't you were taught that they came from outer space too? I think I read somewhere one of the articles about you.
That was just like a euphemism of some kind, like meaning that just they have no place in the Middle East. They just came from nowhere, just showed out of nowhere.
Now, your family was not really particularly religious, but you had religious instruction in school.
So this is in school. At home, we don't really discuss so much, but how could I say? If the topic comes, it's a pro-Palestine topic, but I think my father was very smart just to separate everything away from home, which, honest to God, like just it was good for our mental
acuity. So in other words, you're saying the anti-Jewish sentiment you heard in school, but in your home, you did not hear anti-Jewish sentiments?
I mean, you would hear it on TV, you would see it on TV shows, but not really from anyone, like, like not from my mom, not from my dad. Look, 3 Shabbos ago, I was in Abu Dhabi, and I went to shul, and I met this one lady who spoke Arabic fluently. I was asked to introduce myself at the Kiddush, and she came to me and said, yes, what he's saying is correct, because Kuwait was the most anti-Semitic of all Gulf countries. I'm like, what are you talking about? Really? She's like, yes, the educational system of that tiny country was completely infiltrated with Muslim Brotherhood. Now, I did not know that kind of information, but she's an ex-diplomat, spoke Arabic fluently, Jewish lady, and she told me Kuwait is the worst of the worst with that kind of stuff. The Kuwaiti ruling government is supremely wealthy, and they just didn't care, and they just handed the keys to the religious, like my father says, anybody with a beard, anybody who stopped shaving became, someone with authority in that country. So,
but your family wasn't particularly religious, correct? That's what your family.
Sorry.
Your family was more secular, not particularly religious in the Islamic.
I wouldn't even call him secular. My father is anti-religious. My dad hates all religions. My father is a very smart, educated guy, and he just didn't think that religion and his type of knowledge went together. Like, why would I have to compete with a guy who just? My father says, we used to walk by the beach sometimes in Kuwait in the summer evenings, and he would say, "You see these guys with beards? The bunch of criminals." I'm like, why would you say that, Dad? You can't. You teach us not to generalize. He's like, no. Because in the Kuwaiti penal system, if you go to jail for X amount of years, you have a better chance of parole if you become religious and stop memorizing the Quran. So he goes, these guys with beards, they come out of jail with the first eligibility of a job to becoming an imam at a local mosque or a teacher at a school. And that's why I think they're criminals. I don't take bets on these people, and that's why we don't go to mosque.
Did you hear from your parents anti-Semitism, anti-Jewish sentiments? Because,
to be honest, I heard positive stuff from my father. My father says he brought a company from Spain, I think from Spain, to do some projects in Kuwait. And I think he said, and he was like taking pride in it, that the owner of the company was Jewish or Jewish background, who apparently sat in our house and was in our home. So my father is more open-minded than you think. My father is just, he sees the world like just we're all human beings in a way. But
But at the same time, for how long was your father a supporter of the Palestine Liberation Organization, where part of the salary he was asked to raise money for Yasser Arafat? How long did it go on?
I mean, my father was an employee for the first maybe less than 10 years of my life. He had a company of his own, and he moved on in his own. He followed his own success, and I cannot tell you how many years, because he started in the 60s. I was born in 77. So maybe he was involved for 10 years or 15 years. He keeps saying, I stopped when I realized that this whole thing is pretty much a piggy bank for Yasser Arafat and his cronies. My dad does not like that kind of atmosphere, whether it was Yasser Arafat and his lies or anybody else who this kind of.
Now, and you mentioned that every year you go to Spain for a summer vacation. In 1990, you went for vacation, but you never went back to Kuwait, right?
We never went back to Kuwait, and I keep thinking about it every now and then. Yeah, we were sitting in Madrid at the time. We're supposed to go down south a few days later, but we woke up that day. My mom got us out of bed earlier than we're supposed to. Get up. My mom makes up excuses in the morning to get you out of bed. She'll say anything, like you just missed the bus. It's 10 o'clock, That day she says, get up. Oh my gosh, Kuwait just became Iraq. I'm like, what is wrong with this lady? I mean, we're on vacation here in Madrid. And, but then she ran away. She didn't stay. She just ran, literally. And all I could hear is Arabic radio playing in the into the hall. And I'm listening. And I get up to see him. My father's sitting there like an idol. He's not moving. And I hear the guy saying it took the Iraqi army 4 to 6 hours, and they covered the entire country. Nobody knows where the Emir of Kuwait is or the ruling family. Stay tuned. I'm like, this is real. And that was. So
you couldn't go. You didn't want to go.
August 2nd.
But your father.
We couldn't go there, but we went to Jordan. My dad had us pack up and get ready, and we all went to Jordan within literally a couple of days. The first flight.
And you left all you were a prosperous family, so everything was lost in Kuwait? Mark Halawa is our guest. He is born in Kuwait to a Palestinian Muslim family, and his father, as you heard, was a contemporary of Yasser Arafat that actually gave money to the PLO. And today he is a practicing Jew living in Jerusalem. We're going to take a break. We're going to be right back after these messages. Don't go away. When we come back, we'll take some of your phone calls. 212-769-1925. 212-769-1925. You can use that to send us a WhatsApp. You can either call us or send us a WhatsApp at 212-769-1925. Email is a wonderful way to get some of your questions answered. Zev@talklinenetwork.com. Zev@talklinenetwork.com. We're going to be right back. Don't go away. Stay tuned. This is the Talkline Network. Purim is a time for joy, celebration, delicious, healthy foods. Elevate your Purim feast with De La Rosa's 613's white and dark balsamic glazes, made with simple, delicious ingredients and no added sugars, because great taste should never come at the cost of your health. Rich, velvety, and absolutely delicious, our white balsamic glaze adds sweet, tangy touch, while dark balsamic glaze delivers deep, bold richness. Drizzle them over Capri salads, cheese plates, grilled vegetables, salmon, chicken, steak, juicy summer berries, thin crust pizza, even vanilla ice cream. And because they're certified kosher for Passover, vegan, gluten-free, and non-GMO, they're the perfect way to enjoy bold flavor, guilt-free. Find De La Rosa 613's white and dark balsamic glazes at kosher stores, Roaring Markets, Amazon, DelaRosa613.com. Call 718-333-0333 or email info@delarosa613.com. From all of us at De La Rosa 613, wishing you a happy, healthy, and delicious Purim. Are you looking to create extra income for yourself or for your family? Well, Talkline Network is looking for go-getters who are looking to generate more money by getting involved in the lucrative world of selling radio and TV time, as well as commercials and podcasts. You can work part-time or full-time. We pay high commissions for those that are motivated to sell radio and TV time. If you're interested, please contact us at 212-769-1925, extension 100, 212-769-1925, extension 100, or info@talklinenetwork.com. Ideal for students, for retirees, for housewives, anybody looking to generate extra income. Again, that's 212-769-1925, extension 100, or info@talklinenetwork.com.
You don't have to be famous to have a memoir, a book that tells the story of your life. This is New York Times bestselling author Michael Levin, and books are my babies. Your children, grandchildren, and future generations can only know you if you put your story down on paper. That's why I created Jewish Leaders Books, a place where we can tell our stories for our loved ones and friends today and for future generations tomorrow. We're the people of the book. Now it's time for your book. Whether you have a dream or a complete draft, visit jewishleadersbooks.com or call Zev Brenner at 212-769-1925, extension 100, or zev@talklinenetwork.com. That's jewishleadersbooks.com, or reach out to Zev at 212-769-1925, extension 100, or zev@talklinenetwork.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode of
Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast, on the air since 1981. Please call us with your questions and comments at 212-769-1925. That's 212-769-1925. Or email us at zevbrenner@gmail.com.
Our guest is Mark Halawa. He's now Mordechai, but he started off being a Muslim, a Palestinian Muslim, lived in Kuwait and in Jordan, and today he's a practicing Orthodox Jew living in Jerusalem. Now, in 1990, you did not go back to Kuwait. Your family, I'm referring to, decided to go to Jordan. Did you lose all your fortune in Kuwait and had to start all over again? How did it work?
That's a very good question. So there's money that was obviously in banks, and there were like lawsuits in between my father and government bodies, because my dad had a large company. So he had to sue. He had to sue through a United Nations compensation committee that was later on created by the United Nations, based in Jordan, in Amman, Jordan. That thought, at the time we became Canadian immigrants, or Canadian, he invested in Canada. We were ready to move to Canada by that time. I decided we're going to stay in Jordan because I want to be next to where my money is. So it took my father 13 years of documentation, of suing, of litigation, in order to get the first dollar from
Send your money back.
It was, if you remember, the oil for medicine and compensation money that was being taken from Iraq.
Now, here you are. You grew up, you're Palestinian. Your father was connected with Yasir Arafat, the PLO. At what point did you discover that your grandmother was Jewish? And how did you get to end up being a father and a family who had a connection to PLO, where today you're living in Jerusalem, a Jewish life, an authentic Jewish life?
So first of all, the term Palestinian is very catchy and all, but I refuse that term. We had a passport from Jordan. My dad was like fully a Jordanian naturalized citizen. He had full citizenship. So this whole thing came on 20 years later, this whole refugee status, and we're Palestinian and all.
And you're still listed as a Palestinian refugee today, right?
I got a list. I got a document with a list. Apparently, my mom is not on the list because she was born in '58 in Shechem. But I got a list from here, from just across from Shar Shechem, or Damascus Gate, for those who know Jerusalem. I went and I spoke to somebody, and because I didn't have a local ID, he didn't give me an ID, and I didn't want to show him my or Erlen to that Saud because my daughter's names are on it. So he gave me a printout from the office of Jordan. He could see where my family belonged, and he gave me a printout of that. So my father and 5 of us siblings, some are bank managers for a long time. One of my brothers is like the most successful family, and the list goes on. One is an American. He's in the United States with his lovely wife in somewhere in the East Coast, and we're all Palestinian refugees. Now, This is a huge story. And before we move on with our grandma, I'm going to answer you. I ask for any of your listeners who has a way to deal with this. How and can we get a list of these so-called Palestinian refugees? Let us get a list of those names. You know, I mean, America paid billions of dollars throughout the years, and the rest of the world did also. Can we see the list of names? Can we have somebody, can we have an AI program go through them? Who's alive, who's dead, who was born where? Is Gigi and Mimi Hadid, whatever their name is, the models from California, are they listed on there too? Their father was also born in 45, like my father. This is an important thing. In order to kill that scam, we need to expose it well. Otherwise, it could come back. Now, about my grandma, unless you have another question.
No, before I get to your grandmother, so your father had a Jordanian passport, but is listed as a Palestinian refugee.
He became, okay, this whole UNRWA thing came after the PLO, started back. The
1964 was when the PLO was formed.
Correct. And I know the UNRWA was before, but then they covered, I don't know how to word this, but there was an extension of who was categorized as a refugee, those who were born in British-mandated Palestine during certain years, even though they went to different countries and were neutralized citizens or naturalized, their status of being refugee was extended indefinitely, just forever. And a law was put in that the children, male children of these refugees also automatically become refugees. That's something Arafat succeeded in doing later on. This is a part of his lobbying, and just to keep the cause alive. Because my father said Kuwait was giving people citizenships, was actually, making people citizens and, absorbing them within the country, and other countries as well, the United Arab Emirates. There's a lot of people that became Emirati citizens, they're Palestinians. But then who stopped it was Arafat, for that reason, to extend the Palestinian refugee status. Now, why is this important? You get money. This money increases based on the living costs annually from year on year, year after year, and that money goes to the Palestinian Authority. They manage it and make sure it goes to the right places, if you know what I mean.
So to their pocket, that's the right place.
Exactly. Nobody gets it. Nobody sees a dime. So yeah, this is a big scam. And just want to say, the PLO is not and the PA are not the only people who receive that money. Hosting countries or host countries, for them, this is a cash cow. For Jordan, for example, they have one refugee camp called Baka or Baka. It's like Bika, the word Bika. They have 400 or 400 and change thousand Palestinian refugees, the biggest one in the world. Now, that's a cash cow. The money comes in and it's administered by the PLO, whatever, or United Nations, this UNRWA, and the government of Jordan also. Everybody gets a little taste of this. That's why everybody's up in arms about opposing UNRWA. This is serious cash-free money.
Wow.
Of course. Lebanon also, Syria also. I've been to these places in Syria. I lived in Syria for a bit. And it's just not pretty. Even Egypt. It's all about money.
Now, getting back to your grandmother was Jewish, Mizrahi, Turkish Jew. So when did you discover that, and what was your relationship with her like?
So, relationship with my grandmother has always been great. My grandmother is one of my earliest employers. And she's an amazing lady. She's alive, thank God, still. She's in Florida right now as we speak. So is my mom. Now, I always knew my grandmother is Jewish. We saw pictures, we asked questions, we explained, things were explained to us. My grandmother used to sit sometime when I was a child, I noticed her a few times, sits in the guest room. We had like a different separation, living room and guest room. She would sit there sometimes looking at her pictures and crying, and my mom would not let us in. She's thinking about her family, this, that, leave her alone. My grandmother left her family with my grandfather to go to Shechem, to Nablus. And from there, had 7 children in Israel.
But she converted to Islam, right? She was Jewish, but she converted to Islam at some point.
So, the natural question, look, we see others in a mirror image of ourselves. You would think she needed to do a giyur or a conversion. I don't know. You could say yes. I say this just for the sake of, just getting people to understand what happened. But if you look up pictures from my parents' engagement party, everybody's holding a glass of, alcohol of some sort and wearing mini skirts. And, it's not the conversion you would think about. So
Did you ever ask your grandmother being Jewish, what it meant to her and why she left it and why she's no longer Jewish?
Sure, of course. We all ask these questions all the time. My sister was the number one in asking questions about how you met and tell us the story again. I'm not sure how to word this in a way that is respectful of my grandmother, but say that she made a decision to leave her family. She loved my grandfather until the last day of his life, and I would assume also last day of her life. I don't condone or promote this, and I have girls, I don't say this in front of my children, but she chose to leave with them. She made Shem home. She had a bunch of children from them. They went through a lot of stuff together. It went on. Now, I asked about her siblings, she misses them or not. There used to be days when she would call them. And for example, in Kuwait, there used to be times when she would call someone, I'm not sure who, like one of her family members, but she would call a number in Jordan that would be a switch to Israel. And the switch is made for people who have families, let's say, in the Judea and Samaria, and they can't call directly. And she used to make these phone calls and speak with her family. And this was an emotional time, usually. Yeah.
So let's get into the correction. So here you have a Jewish grandmother. You grew up learning about all kinds of terrible things about Jews. At what point did you say, Mark, I want to be a Jew?
I mean, it took a long time. Usually, if you read the story, you think it just happened within a couple of days. There was this, I had Jewish friends that I came across in university and in my frat house, fraternity, and people here and there. And I always looked with curiosity. Sometimes with the, I didn't like who I was seeing, but sometimes I really loved the person in front of me. But I didn't think much until I met this one man. It was at the end of, I'm doing my finals at that time, and I was studying in the library, and I bumped into this professor. He was an older gentleman. I don't know his professor at the time. He was wearing a kippah, a big kippah, black one, with a beard, small beard, and sitting by himself, minding his own business. And I just wanted to chat with him and tell him that, I wanted to kind of discuss, like play, back in ping pong with someone, a reason to create maybe a non-for-profit or some organization to bring Jews and Arabs together, because that was 2003, 2004. Around the time when the internet was getting a bit faster. And I thought perhaps we could introduce the idea of the democracy, pluralism, living together with different people from different backgrounds to the Middle East through the internet that is getting faster and quicker. And people could see videos, perhaps, just show them life. And that was at a time when my parents were trying to get me ready to just come back home. Come back home, time to get married and move on and have kids.
You had to get home. Where were your parents living at the time?
At the time it was Jordan, but my mom wanted me to go to Dubai, to be honest, because Dubai was just up and coming. And she wanted me to, like all my friends, she's like, your friends are there, come over and just get a job. You'll get more money because you're educated abroad. Just come. I liked North America. So I went to this gentleman. Hi, how are you, sir? Are you Jewish? He looks at me and smiles. That smile continued throughout the meeting for hours. He looks at me and smiles. He goes, no, I just like to dress this way. Now, I didn't know if it was a joke or not. I mean, I repeat this. They taught me a lot of things about Jews, but none of them that Jews could be funny. Okay. So this guy is like being just, lighthearted and all. And I told him, he's like, who's asking? I said, my name is Mark, Halawa. I grew up in Kuwait. I know my grandmother was Jewish back in the day. I was always curious about Jews. I didn't hate Jews 100%, maybe 95%. And as I'm speaking, I guess I continue talking, and he stops me. He goes, did you just say your grandmother? Which side of the family is she from? I said, I have one grandmother, always did, from my mother's side of the family. He asked me, where's she today? I said, in Florida. He's like, oh, yeah, well, please have a seat. Suddenly, I sat down and I was offered a piece of his apple, which, hey, Jews are funny, Jews are hospitable suddenly, and Jews are, you know,
Human beings, right?
yeah, yeah, he offered me a piece of his food. Who offers you a piece of your food when you're a student at university? Anyway, so we started talking, and this man is throwing questions at me right, left, and center. Where does your father live? Where does your mother live? Where does your grandmother live? What do you do? What do your siblings do? How many of them? And he
How
was
many siblings do you have?
altogether we're 5. So I'm the oldest, and he was interested to build a full picture. I was interested to know, can I have an idea like this sustainable as a business? Would there be interest from the Jewish community if I would create a, you know, peace, salam, shalom, something of that sort? At the end of the story, he tells me, well, basically by Muslim law, as you were telling me, you are a Muslim. I'm like, whoa, come on, man. I came over now, I sit down with you for like an hour talking, you tell me I'm a Muslim. I'm not really Muslim. I told him, on the ID, we're Muslims. It says Muslim there, but that's it. Do you want me to tell you how much pork my dad fed us? And then he goes, and by Jewish law, you're a Jew. I'm like, oh, okay. This guy is a missionary for sure. That's it. I've seen missionaries before. It's not a negative thing, and I appreciate the interest. But I told him, how so, mister? He says, well, as you tell me, as you claim that your grandmother is Jewish, that makes your mother Jewish through matrilineal law, as this is what we believe in, and makes you and your siblings Jews. Now I went cross-eyed. I started thinking of my siblings, my sister, my brothers. What are you going to tell these people?
Did you tell them at the time that they were Jewish too?
I told everybody. I went on the phone with my mom. I was on the phone within an hour, and it was just very early in the morning. And I called, and my mom says, "You're done? You graduated?" I'm like, "We just talked yesterday. I'm going to graduate in one day. I want to talk to you." I met this man, and he tells me, by Jewish law, you are Jewish also, like my grandmother. And I Googled it, Mom. It's on Google. Don't tell me not. And she started talking. First of all, she says, after years, you take 5 years, you're not graduating, and you come to me with this Jewish law stuff. Then we started talking. There was something, and my mom was just defending and saying, no, and my father, Muslim, we go by the father. I'm like, well, we go by the father. So there's a story. We finished the conversation. Go. I have no excuses to tell people why my son didn't graduate from university and didn't get married. Okay, great, Mom, love you. That's after a while back and forth with a lot of love. There's no fight. We hang up. I called my grandparents home. I did not know if my grandma was in Florida at the time or in Jordan. They go back and forth when my grandfather was alive. And lo and behold, my grandmother picks up the phone. Grandma, how are you? She's like, how are you, sweetheart? Are you eating well? Are you dressed well? She's much nicer on the phone than my mother.
Sounds like a Jewish mother, right? How she speaks.
She's the sweetest. She's the sweetest and the best cook in the world, and I miss her. And I miss her food. And we had a talk, and she was like, ask him if he's really Jewish, and this and that. She told me some stories. My grandmother. She was saying, when we grew up in Jerusalem, she's like, sometimes we'll borrow dishes, and back and forth, people will borrow cutlery and dishes from us on holidays. So I understood later on in life she was not maybe from a religious family. I don't know what exactly was the arrangement in her home, but they had a close interaction with other people, with Arabs that lived nearby, wherever she lived. We had a talk. At some point, she was emotional, speaking about a brother of hers who died or disappeared at some point during some issues here in Jerusalem, and she wasn't so settled about this, and she cried a little bit over the phone. And she said, just if you like this man, if he's a good man, just listen to him if he's your professor and all. But we're Muslim today. That's it. Just this is it. We follow Islam, and the children are Muslim.
So at what point in time did you say, I'm going to be a Jew?
I did not say that, but years later, when my sister got engaged, I went to Jordan for a bit, and she saw me, and she's like, oh, here comes the Jew. And I told her, Mom, I've been learning about Judaism, Yiddishkeit, nothing changed, And I would lie if I would say I jumped into everything, I was happy, to know that I belong to a multi-faith family, but I did not identify by religion. I am this, I am this. you know, when you're raised a certain way, you see the world in a certain way. I saw religion far, far away from something that dominates my life or dictates how I look at the world when I wake up in the morning.
But at what point did you say, I'm going to convert? There was a point in time when, because you're a Jew today, so
I did not say I'm going to convert. I was told, oh, you would have to convert. So,
right.
so at some point,
did you have to convert?
I had to do Girl Khumrah.
Oh, right.
No, wait. I went to many, many wonderful homes in Toronto, many Shabbatons. I met a lot of rabbis, a lot of gracious, wonderful families that opened their homes for me and trusted me and had me in their home and fed me and all. And I saw the interactions between rabbis, or not rabbis even, forget about rabbis, between regular, you know, Jewish men and their women and their children and their guests and all. And this Shabbat, I experienced Shabbat at its finest in Toronto. And I always tell people, I tell my wife also, if it wasn't for the Jewish community in Toronto, I don't know where I would be. And that does not negate from the beautiful Jewish communities in America that I came across. But after all these years, I told myself, I want to have a family like this. And then I had an opportunity to go on a trip with Aish Torah. I used to go to Aish in Toronto, and I had an opportunity to go with Aish Torah to Poland and to Israel. There was a trip, a 3-week trip, a 3.5-week trip. And at that time, I had obviously started to learn about the Holocaust. I met Holocaust survivors. I danced at a wedding with a Holocaust survivor, for God's sakes. I didn't know the Holocaust existed, of course. They don't teach you that stuff in Kuwait. You better believe it.
Or Jordan.
Or Jordan, and anywhere in the Gulf. Ask any of your Arab or Middle Eastern friends that you bumped into, did you ever hear about the Holocaust? And I ask your listeners as well to ask their friends. They never heard, and they were incensed, of course, when they did. That's why it's important to teach or show our history, what happened to us, to the rest of the world. Besides that point, I decided I would like to go on that trip. I was a little afraid, but I was really in the middle of communities that were just, everybody had a story from the Holocaust. Everybody had lost someone. And I decided, for the love of God, especially this one lady that I loved so much. Her name was Honey. God bless her soul. She passed. Honey in Toronto was like my mom. And I decided I want to go and see. So I went on this trip. 15 kids from New York, 15 kids from Toronto. We went to Poland. We toured everywhere in Poland within 5 days. I saw as much as I could see, as a human being could, watch and observe. I saw how people went to the washrooms, how people slept, how people didn't shower, or how people ate. I saw how people's will was meant to be broken, and I couldn't believe that I lived my life not knowing this. I kept telling myself, all of the stuff that the Muslim Brotherhood taught us we want to do to the Jews has already been done, has already been accomplished by, later on I would learn, by the partners of the Muslim Brotherhood, the Nazis. After that, we got on a plane, all of us, and went to Israel. Now, I thought Israel was apartheid. I truly believed Israel was apartheid, and I believe that it's necessary. This is 2009. I arrived to here, and I see Arabs and Jews and Christians and people from every single walk of life walking together in this small, tiny country. And I don't know who's who. I don't know who's Arab and who's Jewish. I just keep my mouth shut and speak English, and I just look at people, stare at people. So I fell in love with this country. And then my mom, at some point, I had a conversation with my mom, and she knew I'm in Israel. And she tells me, go to the wall and ask Allah to find you a nice wife. I'm like, come on, I'm going to go ask Allah now to hook me up. She's like, yes, that's the one you ask. I'm like, okay. So I went to the hotel, and I said, God, please, God, like all the girls, all the ladies, all the beautiful Jewish ladies that are here, please, God, help me find a nice Jewish woman that would accept my crazy story in my life, and it would take me. And that's all. Because in Toronto, it's harder. In Jerusalem, there was like, everybody was Jewish. So I went back to Toronto. If I had a battery, it was never as full as then. I was on fire. I had been told before that trip that you might have to do a conversion, and I dismissed it, and I found it insulting even. But I went back and I said, I'm ready to do anything that it takes. I wrote an article back then called The Jew from Kuwait and was published on Yasir Torah's website. That's after my experience in this trip. And from a thing to another, I started keeping Shabbat slowly. I was always keeping Shabbat in my own way, but I wasn't educated enough, so I wasn't always. And kashrut, and as much as I could. And then through this article that brought me some attention, I asked Yasir Torah if I could learn at their yeshiva, and asked the Beit Din in Toronto if they would accept that. They said, absolutely, it's the best of the best. So I decided to come over to Yasir Torah for one zman, which means one semester, was 8 months. When I came here, it was Parshas Lech Lecha, and I'm not trying to make this symbolic. This was October 5th, 2010 when I landed here. And that Shabbos was Parshas Lech Lecha. I did not know what Parshas Lech Lecha is. I don't know who's the star. I don't know Avraham Avinu was there. I don't know who's there. But I came in, and I just came in with an open heart, and I shut everything down, and I wanted to be open to just this. I want to have a Shabbos at home. I want to host people. I want to have a lady to my right and my kids to my left. And that was my dream. And it took a long time. It wasn't really quick.
And we'll take a break. And you have found a convert of a Lutheran minister, right, from Finland, who came you are. We'll talk about that when we come back. Our guest, Mark Halawa, started out life as being a Muslim Palestinian. At least they was called a Palestinian. Still listed as a refugee. Today he's a practicing Jew living in Jerusalem. We're going to be right back. We'll try to squeeze in 1 or 2 phone calls. 212-769-1925, 212-769-1925, or email zev@talklinenetwork.com. You can also WhatsApp us, Zev. You can WhatsApp us at 212-769-1925, 212-769-1925.
Hear this sound if you've been arrested or charged with an offense, allegedly or not.
You know who to call.
The law offices of Sarah Shilovitz and
Mindy Meyer.
We aggressively represent criminal cases. Former prosecutor, many years of experience with offices in Manhattan, Miami,
New York City, representing all defendants, white collar, blue collar,
pink collar,
politicians, and everyday people.
We handle all areas of law. Feel free to contact our office, and you get a special price if you say that you heard it on Zev Brenner's fabulous radio show.
We could be reached at criminaldefensetagteam@gmail.com.
That's criminaldefensetagteam@gmail.com. And we could be reached on our phone, 917-497-1592. That's 917-497-1592. Looking forward to zealous representation for all your legal needs.
Hello. Suffering from foot pain that's dragging you down? This is Dr. Uriel Levy, your trusted board-certified podiatrist with over 3 decades of experience. I'm here to bring relief to your feet. With expertise in orthopedic and medical foot issues, I craft custom orthotics for 75 to 100 patients each week, meaning countless happy feet. Medicaid managed care, including Fidelis, United Healthcare, and Anthem, covers custom-made orthotics if you need them. Plus, I combine reflexology and Eastern medicine to bring a holistic approach to foot and lower extremity care. Think of me as a soul healer, not just a podiatrist. Whether it's plantar fasciitis, bunions, or everyday aches, don't let foot pain hold you back. Please visit me at my Borough Park office at 1453 44th Street. That's 1453 44th Street, or in Spring Valley at 11 Charles Lane. Call 347-386-5237. That's 347-386-5237. Or visit drsoulhealer.com. That's Dr. DrSolehealer.com to schedule your appointment today. Your feet will thank you. Don't let foot pain defeat you.
Podcasts are everywhere, but cutting through the noise is tough. Did you know of the 5 million podcasts worldwide? Half of them only get 30 listeners? Want to reach a bigger audience? Think radio. Talkline Network gets you targeted listeners who are ready to engage with your message. Host your own show with us and supercharge your podcast's reach. We'll help you connect with the right audience. For a free consultation, call Talkline Network today at 212-769-1925, extension 100. That's 212-769-1925, or email zevbrenner@gmail.com. That's 212-769-1925, extension 100.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And now, here's your host.
And we're back. Our final instructor, Mark Halawa. He started off life as a Palestinian refugee, son of a PLO activist, contemporary of Yasir Arafat, today a practicing Jew in Israel. How did your parents take to the fact that you became a Jew?
Wow. It took there was a few stages of swallowing this from my parents. I mean, they really thought I was going crazy, and at some point I'm just gonna go back to sanity again. Look, my mom always said, "I'm happy that you got connected to godliness and the good in this world, and I'm happy about that. Better than the infidel lifestyle your father raised you on." But obviously, my mom, did not want me to go deep in what I was doing, which is learning more. She thought I'm just like, it's a passing interest.
And your father, what did he say?
My father was not happy when he discovered that I came to Israel, to be honest. He was really like, and then later on when I moved here, Judaism, he doesn't give a damn. He thinks just crazy and probably something, a stupid interest of mine that was lose.
Had your father and mother come to visit you in Jerusalem?
No, I wish. I want to bring my mom over. My mom is in Florida now, as I mentioned, and I mean, we don't talk a lot. I try to avoid, communication during war and conflict and stuff, because throughout the years I've been through this trap many times, and we end up speaking about politics and losing members of the family, unfortunately.
What about your siblings?
Siblings, we stopped talking. Look, a few years ago, in the middle of COVID, I got them all together in Dubai, and it was just Erev Christmas, and we got together, and they like to have a drink, so we sat down together to have a drink, and we all decided not to speak about politics. But my sister's eyes started bawling. Start, speaking about, oh, how dare you put our family name up there? People come over to us. The riffraff of the world points fingers at us and tells me things. And your brother is Jewish, and you guys are Jewish background. I mean, it's not that there's something embarrassing in saying we belong to a Jewish family. There's more than one family that are known to be Jewish. Like, I'm talking about Arab families in Jordan that are known to be Jews. We know this family, for example, Abdul Hadi. Abdul Hadi family is Jewish. They're from Shem, but
they live in Jordan.
Yes, we know people that used to be Jewish.
They're not practicing Jew. They just have a Jewish background.
They're known to be Jews back in the day. People know each other from like Shem or from Hebron, from wherever they lived, and they know the families that used to be Jewish. They know this woman used to be Jewish. The mother of this one used to be Jewish. So people know these things. So it's not a shame or an embarrassment to speak about it. I was convinced it's not an embarrassment, and tried to explain to them, stop being stuck in your tundra. Just let's open up, and so what? We'll talk about it. Maybe this will be positive.
His name escapes me, who's done a lot of research. A lot of the Palestinian Arabs and Judea and Samaria really have Jewish backgrounds. In fact, Hebrew University did a test that the majority or a good percentage of Palestinian Arabs have the Ashkenazic Jewish genes. You probably heard about that, correct?
There are, yes, absolutely. Ashkenazi, there's others as well here. And some of these families also live in Jordan. So, I mean, there's more. I don't want to discuss more outside of these circles, but these circles are known to have Jewish in them. I'm not an expert on this topic, so I'm going to stop here on the percentage and all.
No, but there is a good amount. So your siblings haven't come to terms with the fact that you're Jew. What about your grandmother? What did she say?
So grandmother and I were not in much of a contact after my grandfather died. She lives with my uncle in Florida, and he's not so into what I'm doing. He's a nice guy. I kind of look like him, actually, but he's a great businessman and all. But somehow he and he used to be secular himself. He got sucked into religion in Florida, and he got into supporting some of the really big, not so cool players, unfortunately, in the United States.
You're talking about radicalism, you're talking about Hamas, you're talking about
CARE and all these guys.
CARE is a front for Hamas.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. So, yeah, and he came over to one of my talks in Florida. He just barged in one of my the shuls, and he's like, he's talking about my mother. I'm like, okay. So what? But he was like kind of intimidating me, and he came over, this big guy with him. He's in a different world.
Were you ever
the terminology that he uses?
Were you ever threatened either by family members or those that knew you, or friends or colleagues? The fact
him indirectly, this guy indirectly, but I cannot oppose him so much. He's a very successful guy and giving. He takes care of things. So he takes care of my grandma. He really, in a way, takes care of my mom. I mean, we send money to our mom and all, but she stays with him in one of his houses.
But your father is not paying for the family?
My parents are separated,
Where's your father living?
Many years. My dad is the only person right now in Jordan.
Oh, he's still in Jordan.
Yep.
And you have limited or no contact with him at this moment in time?
At this point right now, unfortunately not. No one is willing to give me his new phone number. My father has spent years in Canada, in Vancouver, and after he came back, his contacts changed, and I really can't get a hold of him. Yeah, I would love to speak with this man. He turns 80 this month.
Wow.
And I would love to have some closure really before anything.
Wow.
And he didn't do anything wrong, and I didn't do anything wrong either. I just chose my life. Like he chose his life. He probably upset people when he lived secular and he tells people don't speak about Islam or Quran or any of this stuff in front of my children. He is like that. He'll shut you up if you start saying Quranic stuff in my house. He'll literally kick you out. My dad's very anti-religious.
About a minute or two, you married a woman who's a convert to Lutheran minister as her father. So tell us, we found her. We should have her on the program too. But tell us about her.
Sure. So I was so we met here in Jerusalem. It was one of the Benazmanim. I was going to Norway, and I was excited. I went out with some of my friends. There was an event, and a wine and cheese event. So I went to with one of my chavrusas to this event. And there, while I'm speaking to people, somebody said, that woman over there I went to school in Norway, because I was telling people I'm going to Norway at that time, and I'm accompanying a minister of agriculture from Oman to Norway for the fish farming symposium. She was like, oh, she went to school in Norway. I went to her and said, hi, how are you? I went to school in Norway, I heard. She said, yeah. And where are you from originally? She said, Finland. What do you do here? Blah, blah, blah. She told me the story. She didn't tell me the full story at the beginning. I didn't know if she converted and all. But then
did you know you were Jewish at that point in time?
Sure. I was a yeshiva bacher. I was in yeshiva for a year already. So I invited her over. That was Thursday, and on Friday I was invited for Shabbos at the house of Alan and Bonnie Cohen, if you know who that is in Yerushalayim. And usually after Shabbos dinner, they have an owning Shabbos, and everybody's invited to come over. And this was a thing for Aish Torah. People, they would always go there and listen to the really nice and enlightening conversation. This family are just blessed with the worldliness and everything else, and they like to inspire young people. So I invited her to join for owning Shabbos, and I told her I'm going to speak. I'm invited to speak.
And the rest of the you have to join. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Are you writing a book?
I would love to. I heard the commercial on your show.
We're in touch. You have to have you back, and you speak in the United States and elsewhere too, correct?
All the time. I spoke all over the U.S.
If people want to learn more about your fascinating history, how can they do so?
I mean, there's a couple of articles about me online, and just perhaps one day when I'm not speaking to her. But
anyway,
this show is
back on our show, and we'd love to have you speak at some of the shuls that we're affiliated with as well in the United States.
The Simcha Zev, and there's your show here. We spoke for quite a bit right now, so people could plug in and listen to it.
And you can watch us online. Thank you for being with us. Mark Halawa started off life as a Palestinian. He's still a refugee according to the United Nations, UNRWA, but he's a practicing Jew in Jerusalem. Thank you. God continue to give you strength to continue your holy work.
Amen.
Thank you. Mark Halawa here on the Talkline Network. That's about all the time we have. Coming up next is Headlines with David Lichtenstein dealing with halakhic